Chapter 1. Amelia. I rolled my bottom lip under my teeth, scraping off the lip gloss that I had just reapplied in the car. It was a nervous habit, one that I had thought I had outgrown, left somewhere in my youth. I didn't get nervous anymore, at least I had it until that phone call. That's why I was here, staring into my wine glass and trying not to let my feelings show on my face, which I was obviously failing at if the pitying stares in the restaurant other patrons were anything to go by. Did they think I had been stood up by a date? The thought quirked my lips into a smile. If only things were as simple as being stood up. A no-show date wouldn't change my life. A phone call from the Oracle would. It would change it forever. If the old bat was asking for a face-to-face meeting and not just checking in like she did once or twice a year, then something had gone horribly wrong. And shit had hit the proverbial fan. Shit, of course, being my life, and there was nothing I could do to change it. If the Oracle wanted a face-to-face, which meant that she wanted me to do something, then there was no way I could even refuse her. Not unless I wanted her to steamroll my life. And she would do it. No one said no to her. No one would dare. And I wasn't about to be the first. I sipped the wine in front of me. At least my Friday night had alcohol after the week in the office I had had. I needed the cool crispness. It wasn't quite vodka and lime, my usual drink of choice, but I needed my wits about me. The phone buzzing my bag pulled me out of my daydream, or was that the day nightmare? And I reached down for it, using my fingerprint to unlock it and answer whoever had messaged me. If it was work-related, I was going to kill my assistant first thing Monday. I had made it perfectly clear that I wasn't to be disturbed this evening. If there was one thing the Oracle hated more than the word no, then it's rudeness. That's why my phone had been placed in my bag at my feet and not on the table next to my hand, where it should have been. It wasn't my assistant. In fact, it was nothing to do with work whatsoever, but it was not something I could deal with right now. I had had enough on my plate without having to mollycoddle upset ex-boyfriends. I wasn't even sure ex-boyfriend was the right word. We had dated casually, had never been exclusive, and the fact he seemed to be more interested now that we had officially split was alarming. Guys like the chase, I guess. I didn't. I liked knowing exactly where I stood, and I didn't have any patience for games. Amelia? I jumped. I couldn't help it. The wine in my hand sloshed over the side and onto my fingers. I hadn't heard her arrive. Have you been waiting long? She was looking at the half-empty glass with her disapproving grandma look on her wizened face, and I had to bite my tongue to stop from telling her that half of the contents had sloshed over my fingers. I didn't, of course. I did wipe my wet hand along my skirt as I stood, though, leaving a damp patch on the length of my thigh as I stood to give her the hug she was waiting for. Today, it seemed she was playing the lovable grandmother card. It was an act she had mastered over the years. She looked the part, blue-gray hair, the laughter line around her two pale blue eyes. At first glance, she had everyone fooled, but it never lasted long. Her gaze was just a little too intense, her tone a little too sharp. People looked away when she caught them looking at her. It didn't matter where you were, human, witch, or shifter. When she turned those eyes on you, you lowered yours. I was no different, as she held me out at arm's length. You have lost weight. It wasn't a question, more a statement of fact. You really should start looking after yourself a little better, Emmy. I nodded, not trusting my voice just yet. She was being too nice. Something was up. Have you ordered yet? Goosebumps erupted on my arms. Something was wrong. Every fiber of my being was screaming at me to get out of there. Run, Emmy. No, of course not. I'm looking forward to having a relaxed meal with you. I tapped my nails on the tablecloth and rolled my lips under my teeth again. At this rate, I would need some kind of lip balm. They were going to be so dry and so cracked. Well, I am sure he won't be much longer, and then we can order. He? I lowered my brows. She hadn't said anything about anyone else joining us. Now, Amelia, don't give me that look. I'm sure you and David will get on fantastically. She made a show of ignoring me totally as she looked over the menu. This was the same restaurant she had taken me to yearly when I was growing up, and she knew the menu by heart. So, how are you after your most recent breakup? How? I didn't even finish the sentence. Of course she knew. She had eyes and ears everywhere. If I thought being an adult with a successful career was enough to stop her meddling, then I was wrong. So very, very wrong. I am fine. I flipped the phone off the table and into my lap as it buzzed again. It was a mutual decision. Really, Emmie, lying is such an ugly trait. I snapped my mouth shut as a wave of unease washed over me. The man who stepped up to the table was impossibly tall, and his well-fitted shirt did nothing to hide the bulk of his shoulders. He was the one who had been making me feel uncomfortable. Shifter. There was no doubt in my mind. Fantastic. Can I have a vodka lime, please? I plastered my face with my signature smile, the one that had won me more campaigns than anyone else in the office in the last 12 months. His eyebrows shot into his hairline as a smile played at the corner of his mouth, and I couldn't help but quake under his bright eyes. Shifters were the worst, and dragon shifters were the worst of the worst. There couldn't be any doubt what flavor of shifter he was. No other species made my skin crawl quite like a dragon did. They were just too much. Too big. Too handsome. And if this was one thing to go by, too cocksure of themselves. Why was he looking at me like that? Was I meant to be swooning at his feet? Oh, Emmie. The oracle stood and gave him a hug, looking abnormally small against him. Yet he lowered his eyes the same as we all did. And I could do nothing but sit there with my mouth open. What the hell was she thinking, inviting a dragon to dinner? Especially to a dinner with me, of all people. Emmie, this is David. She motioned that I was to greet him, her eyes daring me, and I felt my chair scrape back. No, just no. I was shaking my head as I bent to gather my bag from under the table, and I could feel his eyes on me as I bent. Emmie, her voice held a note of warning this time. It's nice to meet you, Emmie. I'm sorry, but I have to go. I took a step as if to brush past him. Sit back down, Emmie. The kindly old grandmother was gone. Her power was like needles over my skin, but I found myself sitting, hands clenched to my fist at the side. How could she make me do this? She knew my past better than even I did, and yet she expected me to sit here and make small talk with a man who literally made my skin crawl? Chapter 2. David. I liked the flash of anger on her face as she settled into her seat. The little witch had a temper of her own. I could see it in the way she bit her plump bottom lip, grazing her teeth over it in a way that held my eyes a little longer than was polite. She was frightened as well. That much was obvious. Not that I could blame her. I knew her history. I knew what the dragons had taken from her. I couldn't blame her for her reaction to me, but God did it turn me on. I was a modern man, if a somewhat ancient dragon, but the way she bit on that lip. I'll start again. The old woman's voice held power. It rolled off of her in droves, and my dragon roared in my head. She was defiantly not some normal witch. Even the most powerful ones didn't have this effect on my other self. And me? This is David. Nice to meet you. She didn't even raise her eyes an inch as she thrust her hand across the table in my general direction, and she was pouting adorably like a moody teenager. Oh, the things I could do to that sullen little mouth. You as well. I brushed my lips against her knuckles, and she finally looked at my face, her cheeks heating. That was better. Vodka and lime, was it? My voice was friendly enough, but she seemed even more panicked than she did before. I could hear her heart thumping in her chest. Yes, I was being purposely flirty and making her feel uncomfortable, but I was pretty sure there was an attraction there as well. She might not know it yet. I had definitely made her heart beat a little faster when I kissed her hand instead of shaking it. Thank you, yes. She pulled her hand away, and as I watched as she subconsciously wiped on her skirt, then she gathered herself. I watched it happen as if in slow motion. There was a tremble that swept her body, and her shoulders straightened as she lifted her chin in defiance, as she gazed across the table at the oracle. She was magnificent. Shall we order and get straight down to business? Gone was the scared girl. I am absolutely starved. In her place was the professional woman I had read all about. What could I say? I did my homework, and I wasn't embarrassed to admit she fascinated me. More and more so now I had met her in person. Emmie, can we not have, in your own words, a relaxed meal? Why are you in such a hurry? Amelia's eyes blazed. Her green eyes actually lit up. Maybe she was as powerful as the Oracle had said. So much power in such a pretty package. Leaning back on my chair, I made myself relax at the same time, making sure my leg brushed her bare calf. As expected, she stiffened, as if she was electrocuted. I smiled lazily at the look of death she shot in my direction. This was too easy. Forgive me. Her words were polite. The look on her face could kill, and my smile deepened. I have had a hard week, and I wasn't expecting such company. She shot me a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes as her hands went into her hair. It was perfectly smooth, a sleek chestnut knot, and my fingers itched to let it loose, to see her lose control as well. It was a powerful image. It had been a long time since a woman had me want her so instantly. Maybe it's the fact that she seemed to detest me. I did always like a challenge. No apologies needed, Amelia. Let me introduce myself properly. I stood, my chair making a god-awful scraping noise on the marble floor. I knew every woman and even some of the men stopped and stared at me. I was used to it. I am 𝘸𝘰𝘠𝘴, the Red Dragon of Wales. There was a moment of confusion on her face. I thought you were David. Then her mouth opened in a perfect O, and I felt myself harden uncomfortably. The Welsh Dragon. I nodded my head politely as I lowered myself into a small bow. It's a pleasure. I hope that you will agree to help me, Miss Amelia. There was a moment of silence as the waiter appeared with our drinks. No, that the Oracle was saying much, just watching us with a small smile playing on her thin lips, as if it was going exactly as she had planned. And how can I help you, Mr. Llewellyn? Straight back to business it was then. She really did make it hard to flirt with her, and I hated to admit it, but I liked flirting with her. David has a child, the Oracle finally spoke, which was for the best. I was pretty sure she wouldn't refuse the Oracle. She would, however, shoot my plea for help down in a blink. Okay. Who needs protecting? I see. I watched she dimpled her fingers together. This was her work face. I was pretty sure of it. The perfect blank look on her face went so well with her perfectly coiffed hair. She was just perfectly put together. And we would like you to be the witch to do it. Chapter 3. Amelia. What the hell? Pardon me? I couldn't help the words as they spilled out of my mouth. At least it hadn't come out, what the fuck, which is what I had been thinking. No rudeness in front of the one old crone. I'm sorry, I'm a little confused as to what you actually both want from me. I waved a hand in one's particular direction. David needs a witch to protect his son. I turned my eyes back to the Oracle. I hadn't meant to stare at the dragon, but my eyes just couldn't seem to move away on their own. Damn him. Dragons. Too good-looking for their own good. And my own good, as it happened. And you thought I was a good candidate. Are you actually for real? My work persona slipped as I blew out a breath. Why would a dragon, especially this dragon, need protection from a little old witch like me? I gulped down the vodka, hating yet loving the burn that trailed down my throat. I couldn't get drunk, not in front of the two hyenas, but God, I needed a buzz. Are you not the council's man? I raised my eyebrow at him with the question. Weren't all dragons in league with the council? The same council who had left me parentless? I don't understand. What am I doing here? Maybe she isn't the right candidate after all. His voice grated on me. Maybe she feels she isn't powerful enough. I'm plenty powerful enough, too. I did something that I hadn't done since the days of college. I almost lost control. Not powerful enough? Sparks winked into existence between my fingertips. I would give the godforsaken dragon not strong enough. Amelia. The Oracle's voice was outraged. Her own hands were splayed in front of her. Was she really going to counter me if I attacked him? David, she is more than powerful enough. You are both acting like children. David bowed his head. You are right. My apologies, ladies. Emmy, I hope you can forgive me. My son is precious to me. David has gone against the council at great risk to himself and his child. So just this once, and me, I would like you to put your prejudice away. Prejudice? I bit my lip again. If I kept doing that, I would make myself bleed. I wanted to bleed. The pain would wake me from the surreal nightmare I was in. A dragon going against the council. There were rumors, of course, of the lesser dragons turning against the shifter ruling body, but never one of the really old ones, never one of the ancients. Why? I couldn't help myself. I had to know. He looked shocked. It fleeted across his handsome face in a second, replaced by a worried look. It was a rehearsed look, and I felt my eyebrows come together. I want my son to grow up. His eyes raised, and for the first time, I could meet them without flinching. Free. I can understand that. And I could. I would never want another child to go through what I had gone through, even if it meant working with a being who physically made me feel ill. I could work alongside the stupidly handsome dragon to protect his son from the council. Because this is what they did. They kept their iron grip on the majority of the community by threatening to rip families apart. My parents hadn't fallen in line, and they had... I couldn't even finish the thought. They were gone. My innocent childhood was gone. I could never get it back. But I could help this child. I could help him not ever go through what I had to. Are you okay? The warmth of his fingers was unexpected, but not wholly unwelcome, and I found myself nodding. What do you need me to do? There wasn't any question that I would do it. I didn't want one more child to go through what I did. Emmy, meet your new fiancé. Wait, what? I couldn't believe the smug look on his face. It was a look that didn't last long as I spit the mouthful of vodka down the front of his shirt, sputtering in shock. Why the hell had I agreed to do something without getting all the details? Hello, lover.